Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Trash-Mex podcast. And today we are doing our second version of Bea's the Trash-Mex. Isn't that exciting, Joey? We're doing
Oh,
part two.
super exciting. It turned into actually our most downloaded episode across all platforms. So
Yeah, it caught a
I,
lot of rep. Yeah,
I always forget to check the YouTube for like the views and stuff because I mean I don't know how many people are actually on YouTube, but surprisingly this one got a lot of views on YouTube. Plus, the downloads on all the different podcast stuff. So, we're excited to keep this one moving, and like we said on the last episode, we want this to be a yearly episode. So every March, we're gonna spotlight the women of Mexican cinema because they deserve it.
yeah, exactly. And we highlight, the actress, and then we're gonna highlight a movie that we picked, and we picked some pretty good ones. Like everyone, I mean, we have a guest, by the way, so it's not just the two of us today. It's we have a guest. We'll introduce her right now. And yeah, she picked a pretty good movie and she picked a interesting actress actually. I was reading about her like last night. Joey picked someone amazing, and obviously I picked someone that I think we've talked too much about, but now is the time we're gonna actually give her a highlight. So yeah. And who's our guest, Joey?
Today we have Mariana da Silva, which I assume there's a little bit of crossover, so hopefully people know who she is. But if not, Mariana, welcome to the show, and please, introduce yourself. Let the people listening know who you are.
Hi, thank you for having me. And my name, as you said, is Mariana de Silva, and I'm the founder of Cine. I have been lucky enough to co-found that with Gilbert Trejo, and we've been programming around LA for about 5 years now, as well as leading free workshops, film workshops in different places. So yeah, that's what I do. I'm a cinephile. Try to watch two movies a week, at least. So these were amazing.
Yeah, it was a real treat to be able to kind of you know get your feet into the ground and start watching these ones. I wasn't really sure what to expect out of these ones, but I'm really glad that we chose the three we did because as I was talking to Mariana before we started rolling, each one represents a different decade in Mexico, and the genres are wildly different. So there's a little bit of something for everybody in this show.
Yeah, something for the family and for the couples that want something a little bit steamy.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, just fun for everybody, really. So yeah, I'm glad we got, we chose these movies. This is awesome. I'm excited. Can't wait for people to like dig into after.
Yeah, I think one of the things that is also really cool about this episode and that you guys do it is that obviously, as a female actress, right, and theater maker, I feel like all these actresses are so incredible and somewhat underground and not given enough credit. So it's so nice to spend some time talking about them.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
So I think the best way to start this would to just kind of let's just do it chronologically. We'll start with Mariana since her movie is from the 60s, and then we'll just go into the 70s and 80s and just let the conversation flow the way it flows naturally.
Let's do it. I picked Patsy Mi Amor, which is a Mexican film, and it's actually based on the Colombian writer Gabriel Garcia Marquez. He had an argument kind of piece that was like a short story, and then it was adapted by Manuel Michel, who wrote it. And it's actually, to me, I would describe it as a kind of like Mexican Belle de Jour. And the actress that is in it, her name's Ofelia Medina, and she's an incredibly talented actress. She has the same exact I feel like the same vibe as like kind of like a French actress, I would say, you know. She has this very just still kind like frail but very relatable still somehow. She seems it really is such a great film because they do an amazing job of showing and she does this very well of showing this very vibrant girl who is so energetic and like so full of life. And then she begins to engage in this affair, which then starts to eat at her just by having a secret, which was something that I thought was so well done. It's very rare that you see people holding secrets like that and then the impact it has on their life. Um, and she's just phenomenal. She's just incredibly like mesmerizing in every way. I think that's the biggest part of the movie. Everybody's in love with her. And she, I believe, comes from a like a family that was already in drama, and so she grew up in that. But she also is known for playing Frida Kahlo in the 1983 version of the telling of Frida, which won her like an Ariel Award. But she continued to do telenovelas and all of that in Mexico. And yeah, I love the film, to be honest. I thought I haven't seen anything like this. It felt so new wave to me. But yeah, I'm wondering what you guys felt about it.
Yeah, I'm glad you kind of brought that up because this definitely has a European vibe to it. The Belle de Jour reference, definitely doesn't go unnoticed. And we had talked about it before we started rolling. In there, I believe was it her room
It was her room,
Freddie
yeah.
or Freddie's room, but there's like a Belle de Jour poster in the
Yeah.
room. She's reading a book on Luis Buñuel. So I mean, there's definitely a lot of European influence into this film, which, of course is kind of like a trope in and of itself. But I think they played it. I think they played it well. I mean, it felt a little safe, but I think, as you said, her character, Patsy, I mean, she's really like the life of this whole movie. I mean, it's almost like she's like in her own little world, right? I mean, everything that she does is real to her, even though it may hurt somebody else, or it's stringing the other guys along who even have their own girlfriends but are still enamored with her, you know.
Pedro y Lisa me contaron que habías llegado ayer.
¿Funciona rápido la información?
Qué padre que te reintegras a la onda.
¿No hay alternativa?
Oye, te ves como de película francesa.
¿De corto o de largometraje?
Pues no sé, pero de 8 milímetros.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a sense of kind of innocence to her that, as you said, once she starts having this affair with this married man, um, it all kind of goes downhill from there. Like she gets very depressed, and her dad starts to notice. I mean, everyone around her she kicks her friends to the curb. It's like this whole I don't even know what the word is that I'm looking for, but um, I loved it. Honestly, I thought it was great.
Yeah, it was good. It was very eye-catching, if anything, like very 60s. You see the attire, it's all just it's not like it's the real deal, it's obviously from 1969, so you're in a time capsule right there. And I just love it. Her hairstyles, her attire, very eye-catching. So I was just like, yeah, man, it's interesting that Mariana said mesmerized. Like, yeah, she was very mesmerizing to see. So yeah. And then her
Yeah.
filmography is just so huge too. It's like, damn, she did so much over the years. It's insane. I can't believe how much this woman has worked, but hey, she did it. And she's still doing it, if I recall.
Yeah, she's still doing it. That's what's so cool too about it. I think that was also what was really interesting about this movie was like how they were in that friend group that it seemed like the guys were dating the girls, but they were also dating her, and everybody was just like okay with that, which was such an interesting thing. And I think one of the things that I also thought was interesting was like seeing a lot of Mexican, like the class system and what it means to have privilege there in a lot of ways that I feel like you don't often see captured like that. Her room would cost like $2,500 to live now in LA.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's when like her bed has like that. What is like her bed has? I don't even know what those things are called. I don't know. It's
Like
like
the
a curt,
canopy
like
thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that's like her escape from the real world where she can kind of because I mean there was that what was I don't know like a dream sequence right after she finally loses her virginity to the older man. What's his name, Ricardo, and I thought that scene was haunting. And I don't know if it's because I didn't understand what it's like to be, a teenage girl losing their virginity at that point and kind of all the intricacies that she has to maneuver through with everything that she's going through. But that scene is, I mean, devastatingly haunting. At least to me, it was. I misunderstood the point of that scene. But I mean, what do you think they were trying to say with that?
I mean, I think one of the things that I love about, at first I was like, he's definitely trying to make a Buñuel film, and I thought of it as a choice of the director. But then when I wound up realizing that it was based on like Marquez's essay and short story, I realized he writes with with magical realism and very fantastically. And so I now and like recently once made the connection, realized it was maybe an ode to like Los Olvidados. It has that kind of vibe of like now there's this dream sequence that feels experimental and really interesting, but I think it's actually part of the story. So yeah, it's that's I do love how committed it is to Buñuel in some ways. And but also they go see what is the movie they go see again? Repulsion?
Repulsion, yeah.
Yeah, which is a great movie, but obviously complicated. All the men that it really kind of highlights in that movie, including her father, I think are very complicated and like absent in ways. Like her dad is there, he's her best friend, but he's also not there a lot. And so, yeah, it's fascinating.
They had like I don't know if you caught this, Armando, but they had like her and her dad had like this weird dynamic where
Yeah, that was the thing I got kind of like. At first, I was like, the first time I saw this movie was like years ago. And at first, I didn't really know what was going on. I was just kind of going along with it. And I was like, is this her boyfriend, her dad? I'm confused. And I was like, oh, it's her dad. Yeah, the vibe there was kind of strange. Like they're close. Like they're not even like mom. I mean, father and daughter. It's like they're like, I don't know, daughter and like man. I don't know how to explain it exactly, but yeah, the vibe was a little off at times. I think it was just like her connection with the actor, if anything, Joaquin Cordero. It's like Joaquin Cordero, and you put him next to a woman, and it's just like, he gives that vibe. Like, he's like charismatic with the woman next to him. So I don't know. That's just me, if anything.
Por primera vez en toda tu vida no te atreves a mirarme a la cara. ¿Por qué? ¿Qué tienes?
Ya te dije que nada.
Ven. ¿Sabes una cosa? Si yo fuera ese muchacho, me sentiría feliz de que alguien me quisiera tanto. ¿Quién es?
No sé.
¿Cómo? A ver, explícate.
Es verdad. No sé quién es, ni qué hace, ni dónde vive. Ni siquiera sé si el nombre que me dio es el verdadero.
Bueno, ¿y hay alguna razón para tanto misterio? A ver, cuéntamelo todo.
Prefiero morirme.
Bueno. Si el asunto está así de grave, con mayor razón tienes que contármelo todo.
Ya te dije que no. Es mi vida.
Mira, Patsy. Yo he sido para ti un verdadero amigo. A veces hasta un cómplice. Pero si has traicionado mi confianza, si no crees en mi comprensión, te voy a demostrar que también puedo ser un verdadero papá.
But there really was a disconnect between her and I mean really her parents and kind of everyone else that was in her life. But like for instance, like this man Ricardo who is just sending her tons and tons of roses and flowers, and nobody just seems to really give a fuck. They're like her parents are just
Yeah,
like,
that's
what's
what I'm
like,
saying. It's so just
um.
yeah, they have an unusual like I don't know how to explain like a dynamic if anything. It's like they just let her do what she wanted, you know. They were very liberal, I guess, in some way.
I think that's why they sent her to Paris. I think the whole France references when they mention how she has just spent all this time in Paris. I think it's part of why we're supposed to see her free spirit. But I agree. I agree with you, Armando. I think it's like whatever we're seeing between her and the father is a weird connection between her and the actor for sure.
Yeah.
Feel it. It's like it's very strange because you can tell they're honoring a very close father-daughter relationship, but there's something else there, which is it's weird to
Yeah, and
watch.
then of course, you got Julio Aliman, who's a lot younger than Cordero, and then you're like, okay, there's more of a better connection there.
Well,
Cordero's
the
supposed to be her
love
dad. Yeah.
bombing of the
Yeah.
flowers is insane.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for
That
sure.
their whole dynamic was insane to me. Like like I mean it kind of brings up like the issue of grooming, because he's at one point he's telling her, I've been watching you for a little bit, and just constantly sending her flowers, and she's at the time I don't know if they uh like vividly say what age she is, but I am assuming she's like the 18, 19. But that's just so weird that this dude was just sending her all this stuff and watching her and keeping tabs on her. And even what was it like? She showed up to, I don't know if it was like a TV taping or something, and the director is just like, get out of the way, like dance for her, show her how to dance. And she goes, well, please, don't film me, please don't film me. And I'm sure that's her not wanting, to be on the spotlight, almost like a girls just want to have fun type of situation. But he's like, I don't give a fuck, and he just tells the people, record her anyways, put her on the screen. So there's like this weird thing where like all the adult men in her life are, um, I don't want to say taking advantage of her, but definitely have this grasp on her that I don't think she was mature enough to understand that it was actually happening to her.
Oh, yeah,
For
that is true. Yeah, definitely.
But also, I also read that this was like the original idea, I guess, that Gabriel Garcia Marquez had written was completely changed by Manuel Michel. I guess I mean I would assume that's kind of why there's like a little bit of a shift in modes in this movie, but um, I don't know if you guys know anything about that or not, but and apparently Arturo Ripstein was supposed to direct this at one point, which I feel like would have been crazy if Ripstein had directed this movie.
Yeah, it would have been more intense if anything, more dramatic too.
There is a femininity to the film that I love, and I agree with you. There's this grooming element of it. And I think as a woman, I sometimes wonder how much of it is glorified. It's kind of when you watch some of like Fly Me to Rio with Dolores Del Rio, the guy like slaps her around and then clearly they sleep together and then the next morning she's smiling and it's like, what? How is that possible? It's one of these things where even that old man who somehow follows her all the time, and everybody just thinks it's normal. And I agree with you. I think she must be 18, 19. And one of the things, yeah, it's like the love bombing with the flowers. Then there's also just how much people relied on the telephone back then, her waiting for calls. I feel like nowadays these things are still being done, but they're just more accessible, quicker, maybe.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, the age of access where everyone can reach you at any point if you allow them to at this point.
Can you
Yeah.
imagine how many calls she would have?
Oh my goodness.
In this case, it'd be Instagram DMs or
Her WhatsApp would be blowing up.
oh yeah, for
Definitely
sure.
would have like a million followers.
But deservedly so. I mean, she was I don't think there was anything malicious in her intents with anybody in this movie. I mean, she was just trying to find herself, but it just seemed like everyone was trying to use her for some, whether it be sexual or, whatever benefit that it would bring them. But I think the only one that really cared about her was the what was his name? Herman? What was he, a doctor or
Yeah,
something?
Hitman the doctor.
Yeah, it felt like he was the only one who actually, truly cared for her. And then, obviously at the end he tells her to kick rocks once she broke his heart. But
Hola, Patsy.
¿Cómo estás?
Bien. Ahora muy bien.
¿No te da gusto verme?
Pues sí, claro. Pero hace tanto tiempo.
No estás muy efusivo. Ni siquiera me das un beso.
¿Aquí?
Si quieres. Si no, vamos a otra parte. Ahí tengo mi coche y no viene ninguno de los muchachos. A menos que te esperen.
He hecho un terrible esfuerzo por olvidarte. Y lo estoy logrando. Más vale no echar a perder las cosas. Te quise mucho, es cierto. Pero es mejor olvidarlo. Hay muchos hombres en el mundo.
Hay solo uno. Y ya está ocupado.
I like this movie a lot. I definitely think people, if they haven't seen it, when they check it out, that they'll find, especially fans of the French New Wave, I think would enjoy it because it kind of has that just that feel of like go with the flow, and it's very I don't know what's the word, like talk heavy, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, the first time I saw this, I was not too impressed, but now that I watched it again, and I was like, you know what, this is actually pretty good. I think it's like a very good drama. It's a good drama, obviously. Very interested in actresses and actors in it. So I was into it, and then especially it being in the 60s. Lately, I've been kind of like trying to get into 60s stuff. So this is a nice treat to see from the 60s for sure.
definitely feels like a time capsule. And I think
Yeah.
what's really cool about it is that she is like I guess like a Catherine Deneuve and an Anna, Karina, was that her name, right?
Anna Karina.
Yeah, together. Like she's a blend of the two. She feels so just European to me. And I think that, like I said, I think this is a really great depiction of the class system, even with the mom and the way that the mom behaves with her. The mom is so poorly portrayed in this movie, which moms can be a lot, especially for young women when they're maturing, but boy, there's not a good moment of the mom. She's just like a nagging lady. It's very fascinating how they put her in such this grand light, and then her mom is so dead inside. It's really sad.
Yeah, I mean yeah, I don't know. It's like I said, I'm not a girl, so I don't know what it's like to grow up and kind of navigate those type of feelings or moments in your life of growing up. But yeah, I agree. Her mom was just I don't even want to say aloof, but her mom was definitely not I don't know, not interested, I guess.
The only thing I was going to say about the mom is I feel like the mom is supposed to represent the wife character. We never see his wife, but I feel as though she's the representation of a woman who's, taking care of a home, and then the brightness of this young woman. And I think with machismo culture and it's very present in all of that, especially how women are just so okay. Even the friend group, how the guys are enamored with her, and all the other women are just totally fine, and they're still marrying those dudes is kind of crazy. But I guess it's just the time, That's what I did. That's exactly to your point, Armando. It's like it's the 60s, and it's the 60s, very much so in this film.
I wish I could live in those days.
I mean, the fashion in this is crazy. Like
Yeah, like her
all
attire
the
and everything, her hair, and I was like, wow, like she's gorgeous. Like, yeah, you know, it caught my eyes for sure there.
Oh, I mean, yeah, that goes without saying. She's
Yeah.
drop dead gorgeous in this movie, but even the cars were fucking sick, and the sound. I was trying to find the songs that are played because what's the name of the band that was that? I should have wrote it down. But there's
Oh,
there's like
yeah.
music sequence as is with every Mexican movie. There's always music sequences, but when you have like this swinging 60s soundtrack, I mean it was dope. This is definitely of its time, definitely a 60s movie through and through. Thematically and how it's portrayed, set decorations, music, everything else.
Yeah, definitely one that you gotta watch. So, we'll put a link in our show notes for people to watch because I think, I want people to see this one. This one, everyone needs to see this movie.
I agree.
Well, I mean, I guess let's move on to the 70s, right? Patsy Mi Amor is 1969, so I guess we'll push forward
So
to 1974.
Revista presentará al ritmo del cha-cha-cha, bolero, mambo y danzón. Tivoli agradece que esté aquí.
So I chose Lyn May, and I know people who are familiar with our show are gonna think, yeah, of course, fucking Joey chooses Lyn May, but in the last couple of months, I've kind of been watching interviews of her on YouTube, and I've just grown to just really love who she has become, not, outside of cinema. So I thought it would be a good idea to, talk a little bit about her and, choose. I specifically chose her first movie because that's kind of where her career as Lyn May starts. So yeah, I mean, Lyn May, uh, you know, obviously, is of Chinese ancestry, but her real name is Liliana Guadalupe Mendiola Mayares. And if that's not a true Mexican name, I don't know what it is.
that's what I was gonna say. I was like, that's the most Mexican name for a Chinese girl.
Uh, but she essentially grew up poor. She grew up or she was born and raised in Acapulco. Started selling little, food and little, things to tourists in Acapulco at the time. And, eventually, as she's getting older, she starts catching the eye of, surprise men at these restaurants that she starts working at. And basically I mean, without saying it, she basically says that she was kidnapped and sexually abused and taken to Mexico City, where this man who promised her the world kind of essentially raped her and really set forth a course where she would have to be continue to work for the rest of her life, really, because she had now two daughters that she had to provide for, and her mom as well. So she ends up moving back to Acapulco around 17, after she starts, dancing in these cabarets and these theaters, and that's kind of where she gets her big break because she gets hired to work as a dancer on Siempre en Domingo, which is the TV show by Raúl Velasco, who also was kind of a creep towards her as I learned. But from there, that's where, he gives her the idea of, teaches her how to be a go-go dancer, how to be a vedette, how to sing, and gives her the name Lyn May. And from there on, that's when the legend of Lyn May is born. She uh, well, I don't want to say stars. She wasn't really the star of the movie I chose, but it is her first role, and she does kind of play a big part in the first half at least. So the movie I chose was Tivoli from 1974, which was directed by Alberto Isaac. The short way to describe this movie would be that it's a movie about community. It's a movie about classism, and the plot just kind of revolves around this theater called the Tivoli Theater, which is where everyone kind of goes to congregate in this, poor community. And essentially, it's just like a theater for live show, whether it be, burlesque dancing, comedy. They had like ventriloquists that performed there. Kind of a little bit of everything for, to kind of please and engage with the community around them. But as is, typical, these private investor guys want to come in, tear down the theater, and build a completely new neighborhood and completely displace all the local community that's there. So that's kind of like the main, focus of this movie. It also has Alfonso Arau, who, I don't really want to talk about too much, but in the movie, he goes by the name Tiliches. Obviously, Lyn May, who I think has one of the best names I've ever heard in a character. Eva Candela is, I mean, that's a sick name. Um, and yeah, I mean, it's funny too because you can tell that it's, they make it a point in the beginning of the movie to let you know that this is a union movie. I mean, it's like that's the first title card that pops up is that it was shot in Studio Churubusco's and that it was, a union picture, which I think goes a long way when you're trying to tell a story about, I mean, it's like a proletariat community, I guess, if you want to call it that. I don't know. That might be a stretch of the word, um, but yeah, and apparently there really was a Tivoli theater in Mexico at the time. This is based in like the late 30s into the early 40s.
Yeah, you almost forget it takes place around that time because it feels like a 70s movie, but then it's like it's not really a 70s movie, you're saying.
Well, yeah, and I think that's kind of the I don't know. I mean, I think that's by design at least.
Yeah,
They purposely aren't trying to tell a real story. They're just trying to tell a story
yeah.
about this time that in Mexico that kind of is no longer there, really, especially in Mexico City. Um, but yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of things that are happening in this movie. Like I said, it opens up, these developers come in, like, yeah, we're gonna knock down this whole entire area. They literally bulldoze through people's houses while they're in the house, really fucked up shit. And, with the purpose of, disenfranchising them, gentrifying the neighborhood, which, we see to this day, not only in Mexico, but, even here in the US, it's, they'll claim eminent domain on something and just completely, bulldoze a neighborhood and kick everybody out, just to build, property for investors and shit. But
Yeah, yeah. Stripping away its culture that was built there for so long.
yeah, exactly. And just because it's, it's the rich against poor, that's another classic theme in this one, as classism definitely plays a huge part in this movie. Um, But I really like the community aspect in this because it's not just, this whole little neighborhood of this city. It's the actual actors and the entertainers as well. There's cliques inside the theater group, and I don't have a theater background, but I would assume that it's pretty accurate to what theater groups go through, where you have little inside cliques, and there's even little scenes where Lyn May is about to perform and another girl just pours water all over her and she's like, hey, what the fuck? And the other girl acts like it didn't even happen, kind of setting her up to fail. But
¿Por qué me mojas?
I did love that about it. I feel like the theater aspects of it was kind of a through line between all these actresses. Ofelia Medina, who was in Patsy and Amor, she was in Jodorowsky's he had a pantomime group,
hmm
kids that his son belonged to. And then I feel like Lynn, this is to me how you should start your I guess knowledge of her because she is so dignified and powerful, and I think that all the real like the theater elements of it make it so interesting because like you said it's a kind of a proletarian union and film so but it's very sexy and it feels underground in that way. And I think for the time, it's incredibly it was made versus actually where it takes place. And like Armando, exactly like, as you said, I was shocked that it was supposed to be in the 30s, and like late 30s into the 40s, but it's like watching a sexy version of exactly as you said, a gentrification movie, which is really amazing and also honest to the culture and competitiveness of theater, and then also the way it seems like people, you know, were consuming art at that time, and how free it felt, and in a lot of ways how it's a movie about control.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that helps tell this story is that, yes, it's a fichera movie, it's an early fichera movie, but the subtext of it actually has something to say, whereas, it's not just about girls getting naked on stage and dancing and the comedy, it's a comedy. There's actually a lot of funny dialogue in this between Teliches and the other guys that are in the group.
¿Qué pasó con los postizos grandes, Lili?
Se me perdió uno. Ni modo que salga con uno grande y uno chiquito.
De todos modos se los va a quitar.
A ver si no le gritan, igualatelos. Que se los vuelva a poner.
But again, it actually has heart to it. It has something to say. It's just obviously it's disguised under being a fichera, which, I guess at that time, that's kind of what people wanted to see is,
Yeah.
these type
A lot
of
of
movies.
Yeah, a lot of people like to claim Tivoli was the first featurette movie, which I guess you could say it is, but then not really because this was a union-made movie. This was Gonna Cine. They weren't making featurette movies. They were just trying to make movies to, talk about Mexican culture in general and what was going on in the world. I mean, over there back then. Now, the first featurette movie is always going to be Bellas de Noche, which
Oh
came out
yeah.
like a year after this one. But people love to say Tivoli's first. It's like, no, 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 no. Tivoli, no. Tivoli's not a featurette movie. Don't say that.
Yeah, I mean it doesn't follow the true formula of a fichera.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I would entertain the argument that, it is the first fichera just by nature of chronology, I guess, for when it comes out. But yeah, I don't think the average fichera fan who's going in to watch like an Alfonso Zayas movie is going to think that this is like a classic fichera movie by any stretch of the imagination. But
Yeah, exactly. Because it's what you said. It's a movie that has a lot to say, and it's not just girls dancing or whatever. It's got heart to it. So yeah, that was good what you said right there. I actually love what you said about Tivoli right there. That was
and
perfect.
there's even like, towards the end of the movie when they finally realize that, there's no chance to save this theater, let alone the community. They rally each other up. They get onto this truck and they start driving through Mexico City. You get these like nice shots of like the Zocalo and shit, and they're out there with a busted truck. Their megaphone dies, so they just get a cone and start screaming through the megaphone. I mean, it's like completely DIY, local theater type attitude, right? I mean, it's just put your boots on and get it done any way you can, and that's, I think, is the true driving force of the movie again.
Ciudadanos del DF, venimos aquí los artistas del Tivoli, los artistas del pueblo, los artistas que les piden a ustedes ayuda por su lucha por la libertad, hombro con hombro, codo con codo. Sí, señor, así necesitamos estar.
Somos tus artistas.
Somos tus artistas.
No nos abandones.
No nos abandones.
Con más fibra.
Con más fibra.
No seas pendejo.
No seas pendejo. Venimos a respaldar por nuestra Constitución y la Constitución, no se les olvide, la hizo el pueblo. El pueblo nos da el pan de cada día. Nosotros le pagamos con risa y diversión.
A nosotros el pan y al pueblo la risa. Y el hambre no es cuestión de risa. De hambre. Venimos en viril protesta. Máximas de la ciudad, amparados en nuestros derechos constitucionales. Todos los mexicanos tenemos derecho a proteger nuestros centros de trabajo. El pueblo, el verdadero pueblo nos apoya. ¡Viva va! ¡Sí, ahora viva va! ¡Viva ahí! ¡Viva ahí!
I think one of the cool things too is that, and I think what it is different about a Fichera movie in a lot of ways is I think it leans more theater in the performances. Like those sheets that they were using were so beautiful. Those shots of the women, um, and also of the women who were struggling with their bodies, and there's all these other elements of it as well that is so rich and so it, theater. It's theater, and I think that that's one of the really interesting things I was thinking about was, um, and not to compare the films over and over, but I feel as though Patsy Mi Amor like represents so much of a class, and then this is kind of feels to me like the hidden secret of that class in its main extreme, and then the takeover of it, and I think Mexico was always so rich for this kind of performance art and theater. And I do like that it makes it feel like that. I mean, obviously there's things like when the women are on stage and then the men are touching them, that is so uncomfortable in so many ways, but it's also so real to the time and the lack of protection that a lot of these women have. But then goes to just show Lyn May and her incredible presence, because she is consistently so another mesmerizing actress for sure. And in a world where you don't normally see anybody like her, so it's particularly um, just beautiful. There's so many beautiful scenes in it, and there's so the women are sexualized, but in a really beautiful way where they're very much in control of it. And I think that that's what I really like about it, because yeah, then it does feel like it has a lot to say, and this is actually a part of the story. It's not in any way gratuitous. It never felt gratuitous to me in any capacity.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's definitely one thing that like a takeaway that I think kind of separates itself from being, a, quote unquote fichera, whereas it's not exploitative by any means. It's, the nudity on stage is part of, the art that they're trying to portray really. And I do think, I love that they have different performances there, right? You had like the little people that were there doing their act. There was even like a guy and I can't remember. I should have wrote it down their names, but they were doing like karate on stage, which I thought was interesting. The ventriloquist that nobody really liked, but you could tell he was like the old style guy who probably was performing in the early 1900s, and is kind of just stuck playing at these type of venues because there's really no other avenue for him to express himself. Um, but yeah, I don't know, man. I think
It's a very human movie, if you could say.
it surprisingly is, right? I mean,
Yeah.
everyone has their own voice. Everyone is in control of what they're doing. Um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I had seen it before, but I didn't really appreciate it until like the second or third time that I had watched it. Of course, because I'm thinking, oh, this is gonna be a fichera. I'm gonna laugh my ass off to these stupid jokes. But really, there's something there that you don't get in other fichera movies.
I think it's how deeply these characters care. Like I think that's a big element of it. I think of course there's so much of that and passion in the fichera, but this to me is like you said, almost even the idea of the ventriloquist is there to show you that these people who are doing a new thing that is actually very popular and has a lot of people, and then there's somebody who's kind of jumping onto that, but that is going to be just a lost. You have this feeling that things are going to be lost, and so there's things that are worth fighting for, and every person, although they are themselves, um, they are also very much a group coming together to do something that they feel is important. And I think that that is such a driving force of the film that keeps it from being, yeah, I feel like to me, it felt very much like part of Mexican history, which I thought was fascinating. And I think this movie is like a must see. I would now recommend it to anyone who kind of wants to dive into cinema from that era in Mexico, because I think it's a very well done film that's very brutal, and I think in a time of censorship, it's definitely one that leans that doesn't even allow the film itself to be sexualized, which I think is really cool and unique.
Let me ask you something, Mariana, because you do have experience performing on stage as an actress. There's a scene later in the movie where they're kind of I don't want to say kidnapped, but they're taken to like a mansion, like private Christmas party, I guess. And that's, check that one off the box. It's a Christmas movie too. But they're kind of taken to this house and they're almost forced to perform for these Philistines who are just there to pretend that they care about art, and they're just kind of watching. And you can tell Tiliches what didn't want to be there. God, I can't remember the other girl's name now, but it was like
Yeah.
the girl who took over for Eva Candela. She was there, and you can just see it in their faces where when it was time to perform something for somebody else and not for themselves, that it just was not a natural way for them to express themselves. And I don't know, again, I don't have experience acting or anything like that, but I would imagine that that's kind of something that a lot of actors would feel, where it's, this one's for them, even though I don't want to do it, I'll do it, and I also have the things that I want to do, which is the regular stuff that these actors were doing in the Tivoli theater. I don't know if you made any kind of connection to that, or if I'm even making any sense of what I'm saying.
Oh, it makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. And it's something actually that because I, teach theater classes, and one of the thing, and I also teach directing actors to young people who are starting to direct. And the one thing I always say about sensuality is that sensuality is the enjoyment of your own body. Um, and like having pleasure in that, having pleasure in your sexuality. And it's exactly what you're saying. It's like while they're in the theater, they're doing it for themselves. They're enjoying themselves. They are, performing in a very, just like personal, artistic way. And I think it becomes very different when you're being forced. It's kind of, somebody tells you they can sing and people would be like, sing.
Oh
It's
yeah, tell a
it's
joke. You're a
yeah,
comedian.
tell a joke. Are you funny? And I think that that is an element, but I think you see it so much in this movie because it's the contrast of sensuality. And I feel like it becomes super present when somebody is not enjoying themselves in this kind of world, it makes it, I think it's makes it uncomfortable in a lot of ways. And I think we always can tell when people are uncomfortable, and therefore it makes the viewer uncomfortable. Because, if you're having fun, viewer's having fun. If you're uncomfortable, even if you're hiding it, we can feel it. And so, I always say acting is you're given circumstances and how much you're willing to believe it. And I think that that has a really, I love that that scene is there. And I'm so glad you brought it up because it's such a contrast.
Yeah, that's almost like it's like this rigidity that they never really felt before, that now is, when they were forced to perform for these people, and not even to save like the theater, and it was to perform because I'm telling you to fucking perform. And you can see it, and it definitely is a huge contrast to how they are on stage in their regular theater. I mean, I don't know. I like this movie. I think people listening will enjoy this movie as well. I think there's again something for everyone in this movie, whether you want to engage with the subtext or if you just want to hang out with Tiliches and laugh at all his his stupid jokes that he's constantly making. Um, there's something to enjoy for this one, and I'm sure. I mean, Armando. I mean, I know. Are you a fan of this movie, Armando?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think the first time I saw it was like a million years ago as a child on TV. I didn't even know what it was at the time, but over the years, I was like, "What was that movie with Lyn May called?" Because it was so melodramatic, and I was like, "Oh, Tivoli." So then I bought a copy of it, and I was like, "Yeah, this is the movie, and yeah, this is fucking great. Full of drama, full of heart, and it goes beyond the comedy, like everyone here said. It's like it's a very human movie with a lot of heart in it. We get into we just adore these characters and we feel for them.
Yeah, and of course, it led Lyn May onto a extremely successful career, which was kind of cut short when she decided to have plastic surgery that really ruined her image. But that's kind of what led me into this kind of rabbit hole of Lyn Mayism, if you will. Um, I had seen like a clip where she was completely comfortable in her own skin, and instead of letting it defeat her, it became like I don't want to say an endearing part of her personality, but it became this moment in her life that she transformed to kind of become this icon of not just femininity, but of being comfortable in your own skin. And even to this day, I mean, she's still working. She teaches dance, and she I think she's a dancer in Cancun somewhere. Um,
And she still
which
gets guys. She dates a bunch of guys.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean,
she,
supposedly she had a relationship with a what's his name, Presidente Portillo at one point, which
oh,
that's just a rumor. I don't know if that's true
nah,
or
I'm
not,
pretty
but
sure Portillo was
he's a
pretty well.
salacious guy. Yeah.
Yeah, salacious guy on the low. I mean, everyone knew, it was an open thing. But yeah. Oh, he for sure.
Um, but yeah, I mean, if you follow her filmography after that, I mean, sure, there's movies where it's just her dancing and getting naked and stuff, but um, I really do think this film is a standout for her because you get to see her beauty, you get to see her skills as a dancer, and then you go on and watch the rest of the movies, and yeah, they're typical Fichera movies. I do
Yeah.
think that this is definitely the one to watch for her.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I agree with that
Yeah,
too.
you got to complete the filmography. Yeah, you can't leave Tivoli out.
I agree. And I also think that what was interesting to me is um I need to correct myself because Ofelia Medina's dad was not an artist and he actually was like very against her being an actress. And then because of there was a time that people acted like being an actress was like being a sex worker, which neither or is good or bad, but it was often treated that way. And I feel like Lyn May is such an interesting person because everything she's done, even now, when you see her or if you've seen interviews with her, she's still very much, like I said, has so much dignity in it. And I think that what's really cool about this movie is that it does make it requires a better like a better performance from her. But I wouldn't say better because I feel like it's so young in her career, but I feel that you could tell she feels that she's portraying a character and she's um it's such an ensemble movie. She's a standout for sure, but it's very much it feels like, everybody, like you said, you care about everybody in the film, and I think that that's what's so special about all these films that we watched is that they're so like women's point of view and risque in a way of I think women really being used for their image. And I think what's interesting about all the actresses that we picked is that they have all leaned into their beauty in a different way, and they've used it as a means of power. And I think that that's really encouraging. I feel like as a woman, I don't watch that movie and think like this is, too sexy or this is glorifying anything. Even the women that are in the theater when she's performing have, if you look at their faces, they're smiling. There's adoration from them who are with their husbands. And so I think that there's something really playful, and I think that there's a level. I love that you picked this movie for her because I feel like this is very much a good way to be introduced, and I think a way that she would want you to be introduced to her work.
Yeah, that's a good point. I do like that through line of each different actress that we chose uses their sexuality and their femininity in a different way. Lyn May, of course, was known as La Diosa de Amor, but let's segue into La Diosa del Puerto.
If you guys listen to the podcast enough, I think we've talked about Lina Santos a lot, haven't we, Joey? I feel like we talked about her a lot.
A couple of times, and we talked about her on the last episode.
Yeah, like her name has always been brought up somehow. And then the last episode, she was featured in the movie that we talked about, Mujeres Infieles. And yeah, finally we're gonna be able to like highlight her. I've always I've always admired her. Like not just because she's a beautiful woman, but I always thought she was a really great actress, and then just her origin and everything was just so fascinating to me. And yes, so Lina Santos, she was born in Ciudad Acuña, Coahuila in 1966, and she was raised in Del Rio, Texas, actually. So from her childhood, she was in Texas, and then she went back to Mexico in her teenage years. And when she was a teenager, she was doing pageants. She was crowned Miss Coahuila, and then she participated in Señorita Mexico, and she went fourth place in 1985. And after that, yeah, she got introduced to some producers, and then the producers wanted her to be in movies. She's like, okay. And yeah, the rest is history. She started in a bunch of movies with under the director Gilberto Martinez Solares and his son Adolfo, who we're acquainted with. And when they asked her to be in movies, she said that she won't do nudity. She'll dress sexy, she'll dress in whatever they want her to wear, but she's not going to take off her clothes. She didn't want in the future to see herself on screen nude or her children to see her nude. So that's where she crossed the line. She said, nope, no nudity, but I'll wear a bikini or whatever, lingerie. That's it. And yeah, every movie that you see her in, yeah, she's very beautiful. Whatever she's doing, and every movie, like I said, every movie I've seen her in, I've been a fan of. And the one that we picked, the one that I picked today, Diosa del Puerto, I think she shows her acting skills here really well, if anything. So the Diosa del Puerto is it's a very familiar story. I mean, I'll get to why it sounds familiar in a moment, but it's basically about this woman. She gets raped by this guy. He's like he's the son of a wealthy landowner of sorts. And then when she's already assaulted, her mother comes in and kills the guy. And, Lina Santos, her character, her name's Maria. She doesn't want her mom to, go to jail. So she takes the blame for the murder.
Suéltala, cobarde. Suéltala.
Llegó tarde, señora. Su hija ya perdió su adorada virginidad.
Ella habrá perdido eso, pero tú vas a perder otra cosa. ¡Tu vida! ¡No, mamá! ¡No! ¿Por qué? ¿Qué hiciste, mamá? Fui yo. Yo lo maté. Mami.
So she's sent away to prison, and then in the prison she goes through a lot. She goes through, violent inmates, and then the warden is a bit sketchy. But then luckily she's acquainted with this lady named La Chupis, and La Chupis, befriends her. And then once Maria's out, she had a baby and everything, but then the baby got taken away. Nobody knows what happened to the son, so she's depressed. So her and La Chupis, they go to Veracruz, and then they make the names for themselves in a brothel. She ends up becoming this really highly desired prostitute that they dub her La Diosa del Puerto because it's near, the beach and all, and the water. And there's a captain there named Eduardo who's after her. This young sailor's after her. Everyone is just after this woman, and she just doesn't give in. She takes from them, but she never gives in to any of them at all. And yeah, so if the movie sounds familiar to you, it's because it's actually loosely based on La Mujer del Puerto from 1934, which itself is from a story called Le Port by Guy de Maupassant, which is a French story, if I recall. But it's technically not part of the series because there's 3 Mexican movies based on this story. This would be considered the 4th, but we can't really say it's the 4th because they never credit the writer for the story or anything like that. And yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed the movie for what it is. It's very dramatic, kind of exaggerated at times too, but I was just really into it all the way through. What did you guys think?
I felt like it's so interesting to me that you say that she didn't want to do nudity, because if anything, I felt like this movie was the most where I felt that the character was so sexualized. It was so it reminded me like of a good telenovela that is squeezed into an entire film, which is really exactly what I want to watch.
Yeah, I could agree with you. Yeah, I could agree with you there. Yeah, that's true. It is very novella-esque, if anything.
Yeah, but very enjoyable and also just very, it reminded me a lot. I don't know if you guys have ever seen Almodovar's High Heels.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It kind of, I was like, I think it's such I love that storyline of, you taking the fall for your mother, and then, and I think too, the ward was such that it felt like it was like the saga of her life, and I thought that was really well done. But yeah, everybody was after her. I feel like the movie is most people just telling each other like, she's no good for you. And I think that is really interesting. It's interesting to me in like exactly what you said, that she was the one who like was against kind of nudity and
that was something that I remember. I was talking to to a director. His name's Adolfo Martinez Solares. He's the one that worked with Lina for many years. And I remember when I brought her up, he was like, "Oh yeah, yeah," and she was the one that never did nudity for us. And I was like, "Why is that?" And then he's like, "Yeah, she told us that she just didn't want to, later in life, look at her, see these movies and then see herself like that. She just, didn't want that. She didn't feel right about it. And then if she wants, if she's gonna have kids, eventually, she doesn't want her kids to see that either. She wants, to look at herself later on in life and see that, she did something really special without having to give in or, do anything, that she felt was inappropriate. And she was a beauty pageant, she was a beauty pageant, so she was used to wearing, bikinis and sexy clothes or whatever. So, she was okay with that, but no, not taking off her clothes. She's like, nope, I'm not doing that. That's degrading for me.
I mean, that's a testament to her character outside of, of film work, right? I mean, that she set the ground rules for what she thought, or what she wanted out of her career. And she never wavered. I mean, as you said, she never got nude in her movies, which is, commendable, to where, some people would fold, where if they felt like they didn't have a chance to continue acting, or if they had a director who was a piece of shit and would try to force her into getting naked. And she completely stood her ground,
Yeah, she stood her ground. And then if you look at her filmography, and then Joey, I mean, if you've seen a lot of her movies, you notice that every role that she plays, she never plays like a woman that's degraded per se. She's always like this like woman that's heavily desired, and she kind of wants the guy to work for it, to get her. It's like, nope, you're not gonna get to me, you're not just gonna get me easily. You got to work for it. You got to be good to me, you got to treat me right.
Te extrañé mucho, María.
Yo también, Eduardo. Pasé el tiempo contando los meses que estuviste fuera.
Pues te tengo una sorpresa.
Se descompuso el motor del barco y estaremos en puerto varios días.
Ay, qué bueno, Eduardo. Tu esposo y tus hijos van a estar muy contentos. Pues pasarás más tiempo con ellos.
No son ellos los que me interesan. Eres tú. A ti es a quien quiero hacer feliz. Si te decidieras a aceptar mi proposición.
Salirme de aquí, convertirme en tu amante, irme a vivir una casa chica, no, Eduardo.
No digas eso. Yo te amo. Estela con el tiempo me dará el divorcio y entonces podríamos casarnos.
Ay, Eduardo, mírame bien. ¿Qué ves en mí?
Una mujer muy hermosa. La más hermosa que he visto en mi vida.
No, no me refiero a la belleza física. Mírame bien. ¿Cuánto crees que me costó este vestido? Estas joyas. Una fortuna.
So she was always this strong woman, she's never just this like, easy given woman, she's like, nope. You gotta work hard for it, buddy.
I mean, as she should, man. Not everyone deserves a Lina Santos, that's for sure.
Yeah, even like in her video homes where she's playing like a drug trafficker or whatever, like she's not even like that in those movies either. She's just like this strong woman, who's ready to fuck you up, and she's powerful. She don't give a fuck about who you are, or you being a man and being stronger than me. Like, nope, I'm still powerful than you. I'm a fucking, I'm a strong woman. So that's what I liked about her. See, that's the thing about Lina Santos, is that she's always just played these strong characters. And even in her personal life, she's been like that as well. Like nowadays, like from what I hear, is she's trying to get back into acting again, but she's still involved with her businesses. She has, I think, a realty business. She rents out like hotels, and then she rents out like apartments in Texas.
Yeah.
So with her sister, if I recall. So, she's very interesting. Like I said, even outside of, the acting world, So I've always admired her for that. She's just this very strong woman, and if anything, very independent. She's just amazing. And in this movie, she plays this woman that, she is sexualized for sure, but it's like, nope, she has the upper hand from everyone. She's not letting, anybody just get to her. After what's happened to her, she's not gonna, get taken advantage of again. This time she's gonna take control of it all.
That's what I think is so great about all our choices, is because I feel like this movie's kind of the mix of the other two in a sense, because she goes, obviously the sexual abuse that she experiences, it really shapes her and gives her, and she, has to stand up and learn, and I guess she starts to use that obviously to always to her power, and she is such a powerful woman, and I think there is a fragility to her in the beginning that makes it hard sometimes to watch her, just watch how men are in this movie, particularly towards her. And that guy who's married and the way he treats, what's his name? He like treats his wife so terribly.
Oh yeah, Eduardo. Yeah, he's played by Fernando Almada. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think one of the things it's like, that's what I mean. It's like she works in a brothel and she's having this affair, and I feel like essentially the Lyn May film, Tivoli, is the same. But it's like her choice, and she works in a performer and not a brothel, but she's owning her sexuality. And then like with Patsy, Mi Amor, it's this girl having this affair. And so when I watched it in the order that we're talking about it, and it was very fascinating to me, because I felt that these are all the objectification of women, but always with the woman. I think with Patsy, Mi Amor, she's so young, and so you're finding her, I guess, start to lose and learn that trust isn't that easy of a thing, that it's a more complicated thing. But I feel that the other two films have this very, women who are using their sexuality to their benefit, as they should, because they're being sexualized. So why not them benefit from that? And I think that that's what's really cool about all three films. Not only that it kind of goes in decades like that, but that it has this, this very interesting dynamic of women and all the shit that we get put through sometimes, and I think that that's what I love about all three of these actresses is how in their power they are, and how I think they just carry these films, you know. And so it's really cool. It's this was a really fascinating movie to me because it was also a time, very much a time capsule of that time.
Yeah, the late 80s. When the cinema was declining, as they say, but they were still making pretty good movies, I think. I don't know.
I love this movie, honestly. This was like a tale of two different movies. The first half of this movie is like a non-explicit woman in prison film where, she gets sent to, I don't know if you guys are fans of women in prison films, but you get these, scenes where, she obviously gets sent to jail after taking the fall for her mom, but you have, this wicked warden who takes control of all the women in this prison. She essentially sexually abuses the women as a woman herself, which is a very common theme in women in prison films. Then you have this like nasty death where Lina Santos's character Maria is, about to be forced to have sex with the warden. And what was the other girl's name? La Cortada, was it?
Yeah, La
She
Cortada. Yeah.
comes in and fucking slices the warden's neck.
Pasa, María. Ya estaba impaciente. ¿Y a ti quién diablos te invitó? Sal de aquí, María. Vete. ¡Que te vayas! Estás celosa, ¿verdad? Y estás aquí porque me necesitas. Te equivocas. Estoy aquí para matarte.
Crazy, right? And you're thinking, okay, this is going to be a wild movie. And then it just kind of flips on itself and it becomes this kind of salacious drama where this woman, as you both said, has control of her own sexuality at this point. She's been sexually abused not only by men but by women as well. So she's not letting anyone get have the upper hand on her, whether it be Fernando Almada's character or Raúl Meraz's character. What was his name? Arturo. And then you had Raulito, who was like a younger man who she completely was like, little boy, get out of here. Like you don't have you don't have what it takes to be with a woman like me.
Yeah, and that guy was just not giving up. He was just trying his hardest.
Well, neither of you mentioned it, but the end of this movie is completely crazy.
Yeah.
I guess we can spoil it. I mean, do we want to spoil it? I don't know.
Well, let me put it this way: if you've seen La Mujer del Puerto, like each movie, like the 30s, the 40, and the 90 one, they're all pretty much the same. They all have that same sort of theme. It's like there's the incestuous, moment in there. So yeah, we can spoil it, I think. I mean, like I said, the story is pretty familiar already as it is.
All right, well then I'll spoil it. The the end of the movie, it turns out that this young man, Raúl, who works for Eduardo Fernando Almada's character, he, obviously is trying to get at her, and she finally relents and allows him to, come into her room, and they're kissing, they're macking it. And then it turns out that it's her son, her long lost son, is someone that was sexualizing her, and it completely broke her. And
you feel it too. You're just like, oh shit, you're like, God damn, that's awful.
Yeah. I mean, it's like this, because up until that point, it's dramatic, but that's like a heavy drama. A heavy dramatic turn in this movie. Granted, it's the last 5 minutes of the movie, but you see her break down just as she did when she was first assaulted. You see her break down as she did when she was in prison. And I'm sure there's a vulnerability in that where at that point in her life, she didn't want to feel that anymore. So you get this, this innocent girl who is broken, builds herself up, and then completely falls off of a cliff in this one. And the fact that it's not, I mean, there's like I don't want to necessarily say like softcore sex scenes. I mean, there's like sexy scenes, but they're not showing any type of sex in this movie. But it is wild, let's just say. And I really did not put two and two together until Mariana brought that point up to where this final movie, La Diosa del Puerto, Lina Santos' character really is a reflection of both Patsy and Eva. And you get this naive girl, because Maria, Lina Santos's character, is a school teacher, right? I think she's 19 at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, she's supposed to be
Same
younger.
age as Patsy, right? So they got this, this innocence to them where they don't really understand, the cruelty of the world, the way men treat women in Mexico. I mean, obviously, femicide is like a huge issue in Mexico. So you see this man who has no regard for her, completely breaks her. Then you get this wicked warden who, breaks her. But then she has La Chupis who helps build her up, empowers her, makes her feel seen, makes her feel like she can be vulnerable in a shitty situation, being in prison. But in the second half, she takes control of herself the way Lyn May does in Tivoli, where she can be sexy, she can be, empowered, she can have control over whoever and whatever is happening to her in her life. So that was a great call out right there, Mariana. I didn't put that together until you literally said it right there, and I was like, holy shit, that is so true.
Yeah, this is a great episode.
Coincidentally.
We got a good hit here, guys.
Well, and I do think the one thing that is, I started my career in soap operas, like in telenovelas, in Telemundo. And one of the things that was really funny for me was that I was watching it and I was cooking at one point, and there was like lines that would be said and I would know the answer to them, or there was like, I can't explain. I guess there was a moment that a guy says, como te muestro, like, how do I show you that I love you? And she's like, and I told, I, in my brain was like, you have to show me. And then she's like, tú eres el que tiene que mostrarme. And I was like, okay, yeah, this is like, there's something about it that feels familiar that I really love about it, that makes it feel even more special to me. And I think one of the things that we learn when you first are studying, like, in that space, which I was lucky to study in Telemundo, they had this program that I was a part of, and they talk about how novelas are always based on Shakespeare, so the Hamlet aspect of this, right? The obsession with the mother, and then how it's so just Freudian in its own way, but it's fascinating, and it's also really fascinating because you just mentioned femicide, and obviously Mexico being one of the largest countries it's such an issue, and that's a whole other thing. But I feel like one of the things is the obsession with the mother, right? And so then to turn it on its head and have that also be like just the tail end, it builds up so long and then it's just the tail end of it. And I think that there's this I almost feel like not shaming of sex work, but I think it's kind of like they were never going to let her win, even though this is a woman who has won throughout the film because she has been put in the worst possible situations and she's come out of that, and she's consistent. And so I think that to me is these films in their own way talk about the culture and machismo culture in such a vastly way, because it also talks about the people making the film, and I think that obviously these are all wonderful directors, and I can't imagine what safety on set looked like. And I think sometimes when I'm watching exploitation films and stuff from from like Brazil, for example, I'm like, oh, I feel like this woman is not being protected, and that now makes me uncomfortable. But this all of these films, all these women to me felt like they were just really tapping into dignity in films that could have been played very superficially, you know?
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine doing a triple of all these in one night? I mean, that's a heavy fucking night. I mean, you're just like a roller coaster of emotions there. Um,
You're gonna go in excited, and then you're just like, oh, okay, oh man, oh god, and then start crying at the end.
yeah, I mean, even at the end of La Diosa, like, I mean, she commits suicide. The pressure that built up essentially breaks her, and it's sad to see her go out that way because typically in Mexico, like we said, femicide is such a huge issue. It's typically a man who will kill a woman, but to see her kill herself is crazy. And even Don Arturo, who feels like he has the upper hand on her because he's the one who paid for the villa that she's running a brothel in, and tries to hang that over her head as well. Like, you owe me. Like, you need to sleep with me because I'm the one who pays for or paid for this building. And even through that, she's like, fuck you, you have nothing on me. She's like, I'm paying you back. Like, it's money is nothing to me.
Yeah, and and back to like the Shakespeare thing, it's just like Hamlet, the suicide. It's really because there are moments where she talks about wanting real jewelry and things like that. And then at the end, just how little all those things matter. I like that she gets caught up in it for a moment there. It's That's one of the things that I also really liked about it, is that she was really because it was long in that way and you saw this saga, you could see how she was kind of surviving all the way through. So to end it on that suicide is so it's just so Shakespearean and the most dramatic thing that could have possibly happened. That's the one thing. Although I predicted some of the lines, I legit was like, I have no idea where this is going. And one of the things that I love about soap operas is like it just is. Nobody's trying to make it logical, and I think this has that element of that where anything can happen. And it does still feel grounded. So there's something, it's really cool. I was really happy with this choice.
Yeah, definitely. Glad everybody liked it then. I was like, hopefully I didn't pick a boring movie.
Nah, I would honestly say that the La Diosa was probably my favorite of the three.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I maybe we're all gonna pick our own movies, but I feel like
Yeah, I think we're all gonna do that. Yeah.
I think the thing I did love about Patsy was I just thought Ofelia Medina, I was so glad that that's the movie I picked for her because like I said, like she started working with Jodorowsky ever since she was a kid, and she came to Hollywood for a moment. She had this long, beautiful career, but to me, that movie is the heart of it is how she starts as this bright, young, just like life-loving woman, and how you see her deteriorate. And I think as a young girl, when you first go through something like that, that is how it feels, when you have like a mature adult situation and it's like your first mature adult situation. And I think that's what I love so much about this movie, is that it's beautiful. The outfits are incredible. It feels like a French New Wave film, but then it has this. It's very rooted in women worshiping men kind of culture, and I think that I felt like this movie was made for the girls.
Oh,
So
1000%
I
for
love it.
sure.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that was the vibe I got for sure. I was like, this is a girly movie, but it's enjoyable.
Well, let me, we can kind of start winding it down here, but let me ask you both this. Like, if you can recommend one other movie in, each of their filmography. So Mariana, if you could choose another film of Ofelia's to recommend to the listeners that, want to start after watching this and hearing us discuss this, that want to start, going through her filmography, what would be another movie that you would recommend to them?
I mean, Frida is where she really, I think, became a household name, but also in Spain. And I think, yeah, she's very, that movie to me, I love the Salma Hayek Frida, but there's something I always think about watching somebody who you don't know play a character because I feel, Salma Hayek, she is so much like Frida, and she's perfect for the most recent film, right? Made, I think it was 1990
Uh,
something.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, and so I feel like with Ophelia, there's this because maybe our time, she's not so present in like the news or anything like that. Watching that movie for me is one of it's really her best, one of her best, and it's a 1983 movie, so she's a little bit older here. But you really lose the actress. And I remember that for a long time, I used to think that that was the only Frida movie until I then discovered the Salma Hayek one. And I think that there's a lot to her performance in that where it's hard to play another character, but it's even harder to be so in that performance that you kind of lose the separation between the actor and this real person who lived. And so I would say if you're gonna watch another film of hers, do watch the Frida movie. Do you a favor because I think it's also an edgier telling of her story and a lot more focused on the later years where she was discovering art. And so I think that not discovering, but starting to, really become, there's so much less Diego I find in that movie. And so, yeah, I'd highly recommend that.
And what about you, Armando? If you had to choose another Lina Santo movie to recommend to people to, take themselves down the Lina rabbit hole, what would you choose?
Yeah, I can only pick one.
just start them off, man. Just start them off.
All right, I actually
just
wrote down.
Sprinkle a little game.
I actually wrote down three, and I was like, all right, which one am I going to pick? Which one should I pick? I was like, I'm just going to pick one. So obviously, the last one that we talked about, Mujeres Infieles, from the last episode we talked about, I gotta recommend that one. I mean, she's amazing in that one. She's gorgeous. She plays a character that's just so sneaky and then just so dangerous. So you gotta watch Mujeres Infieles. And then Verduleros Part 2. I know that's going to be a weird choice because it's a sex comedy, but here she plays like kind of the same thing. She plays a woman that's heavily desired. She doesn't give in. And, she's funny in it too. That's the thing. She's very funny in it, and there's a scene where she's dancing to Los Drows, Vamos a la Playa. A very, very interesting scene. So I know a lot of guys are going to be into that. And then there's a video home from 2000. It's a narco movie. It's called La Dama de Rojo. And she plays a fucking badass narco in this movie. Well, not even like a narco per se. She's just like a woman getting revenge for her husband who was a narco. And yeah, she's actually really fucking badass in that movie. So yeah, Dama de Rojo, Mujeres Infieles, and Verduleros Part 2. Those are my choices.
Great choices for sure.
Yeah.
I guess for myself, if I had to recommend another Lyn May movie, while she isn't the main focus of this movie, I think this happens to be this is where everyone's gonna be like, yeah, this fool Joey, of course, would choose that one again. La Casa que Arde de Noche, which is a Rene Cardona Jr. movie.
Man,
and you have to prepare yourself for that because that is a very, very salacious exploitation movie. Maybe exploitation is a stretch, but I feel like that'll feed curiosity for kind of more edgy type movie fans, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
There's a lot of there's like drug usage in there. Of course, there's nudity. Um, really, what's the word I'm looking for?
It's such an epic too. It's like there's just so much going on in that movie. You're just like mesmerized by. You're just like, damn, this is so good.
Yeah, I mean, it's wildly different. It's massively sleazy, and I'm sure some people don't want that, and that's fine too. But I think it's just a complete other side of what these type of Mexican movies can be. And did Vinegar Syndrome put that out?
Yeah, they put
Yeah,
it out.
Vinegar Syndrome put that out. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
it's accessible, so people can watch it.
yeah.
And it's restored and everything. So
Yeah,
that
that
would
movie.
be my choice if you want to watch something
Yeah,
very gratuitous. That's a good word to say.
yeah.
All right, well, listen, I gotta say this was a very engaging discussion. I'm glad that we chose the films that we chose. Mariana, of course, thank you so much for saying yes to and agreeing to come on and have this discussion with us. Um, you know,
Thank you so much for having me and also for just I discovered these two films through this, so I'm super grateful and um I feel like I learned so much. So thank you for having me. This is so fun.
Yeah, awesome. We're so happy you were our first female guest, as I said mentioned before, our first woman guest here on the show.
I'm honored,
Yeah.
truly.
why don't where can the people find you, Mariana? And I mean, for those who don't know, she does tremendous work in the field of theater and cinema. So Mariana, please, let everyone know where they can find you. Let everyone know, what kind of projects you have coming up, so people can be in the loop and, start following you through all socials and everything.
Thank you. Yeah, I we have El Cine has a podcast called El Cine Underground that is a film history podcast. So if you're here listening, you'd probably like that too. And it's a video podcast. It's available on SpectreVision Radio, on Spotify, as well as on YouTube. And please follow me at Mari da Silva on Instagram, and then Somos el Cine for upcoming events, and Somos el Teatro for upcoming theater shows.
And of course, all of that is going to be linked in the show notes, guys. So as we tell you every single episode, I'm sure you're tired of listening to us say it. Check the show notes because there's always links to guests, links to the movies themselves. So I'm sure after this discussion, everyone's going to want to get a triple feature of these ones going. So check the show notes for the links, guys. I mean, I don't know. I feel like we say it every time, but sometimes it's
Yeah.
necessary.
If somebody asks me for a copy of the movie, I'm just gonna send them a link to the episode.
It never fails, man. And literally every time an episode drops, someone always hits me, man, where can I watch that? Motherfucker, I told you, it's on the damn show notes, man.
Gotta check those show notes. Every podcast that you listen to, you gotta check the show notes.
And so again, of course, thank you again, Mariana. Everyone, the next episode is going to be in April. Haven't decided yet, but obviously at the end of this, you're going to get a little bit of a teaser to that. Armando, take us out, man. What am I missing?
Oh, well, this comes out in in a week, right?
Yeah, I don't know, something a week or two, something like
Okay,
that.
yeah. So yeah, we're gonna be screening a Rene Cardona Jr. classic on the 29th of March, which is Under Siege or Traficantes de Pánico. So come on down to the Frida at 5:30 on Sunday. So yeah, get those tickets. We'll link to the in the show notes as well, the ticket link and everything.
Man, I always forget to plug myself. I feel weird plugging myself, but March 11th.
Oh, yeah,
For
yeah.
those who are in
Sorry
the know,
Ooh.
Rendezvous, which is the DJ collective I'm part of, we have our monthly night at Footsie's. So March 11th, come out for that, 6 to 10 p.m. And if you're in the San Diego area, March 27th, which is a Friday, we're going to do a collaboration with Popcorn Reef, the homie Eddie down in San Diego. We're going to do a screening of La Mansión de la Locura with a special guest, Alessandra Moctezuma, who is the director's daughter, is going to be doing a Q&A. And we also have invited Abraham Castillo Flores to do a little bit of an intro. So I know people have heard of this movie, of course, have heard Juan Lopez Moctezuma's name. So if you have not seen this movie, or if you're a fan of La Mansión de la Locura, come out San Diego on a Friday night. It's going to be dope.
I'm going to try my best to get out there because I can't miss it on the big screen.
Yeah, that's a good. It's a great theater too. So I think I'm gonna call off of work because I don't think they're gonna give me the day off. So I might get sick at the end of the month. But yeah, please join us for that. That'll be linked. It's already on my Instagram. Yeah, I don't know. Thank you, everyone. The typical rate, subscribe, tell your tia, tell your tios, tell everybody. Mexican cinema is
it's alive and well. It's always been alive and well. People just been like ignoring it. And that's why we made this podcast. So that way people can stop ignoring it or stop forgetting.
Accessibility, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Alrighty. Well, with that, we say goodbye, and we'll see you guys next month.
Próximamente estrenaremos.
Estamos atrapados, lo sé. Vamos a morir. Cállate. La muerte está cerca, lo sé, lo sé. No pienses en eso. Ten serenidad.
Sí, para ti es muy fácil. Tú eres fuerte y conoces esta selva, pero yo no.
Tranquilízate, ya pasará alguien por aquí.
No soy digno de tu confianza, a ver. Vete. ¡Vete! ¡Vete! Déjame morir. Déjame morir.